Hello and welcome. I'm Jon Garlick, and I'm here with the Sheriff of Calhoun County, Matthew Wade, and this is Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Sheriff?
It's always good to be on the show. You know, it's today just seems like spring's in the air. It's getting close. I know we'll probably have another cold spurt, but I am liking the weather.
You liking the weather?
I'm liking the weather.
Your deputies are liking the weather, too. Let's take a look at the count.
That's absolutely. 4 arrests this week brings our count up to 5,179 people arrested, all because somebody was willing to help us out, and we do appreciate it. We cannot do it alone.
The community's stepping up to help you guys, and you're stepping up with a furry deputy.
That's right. You know, the school system has worked with us and a program called Paws on Patrol, and we have a new canine coming to us named Quattro.
Quattro.
I'm not sure if it's because he's got 4 legs or if he's got 4 personalities, but he'll be with an SRO and be in a school system. And somebody said, why would you put a dog in the school? Well, the dog is there to make those connections and friends and gives a reason for those school children to talk to that deputy, and we're excited about the relationships they're going to make together.
Paws on Patrol, only at the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. So we've got other stuff that you can only see here on the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office, Calhoun County's Most Wanted. The first part is the first half of the lineup, and then we have a really great guest for you here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. The first half of the lineup brought to you this week by Abe's Ace Bail Bonds. Abe's Ace Bail Bonds, 256-831-0074. First up in our lineup this week, Donald Coker. Mr. Coker, last known to be living in Piedmont. He's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance, use and possession of drug paraphernalia, and illegal possession of prescription medications. And this is Amanda Sims. Miss Sims, last known to be living in Birmingham. She's wanted for failure to appear on breaking and entering of a vehicle. Take a look at Nicole McElrath. Last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted for a probation violation of theft of property second. This is Gregory Overman. He's last known to be living in Rockmart, Georgia. He's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance, use and possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of marijuana first. This is Jamie Bird. Mr. Bird, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for failure to appear on trafficking of heroin and resisting arrest. And that's it for the first half of our lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You might know where they are. If you do, call Sheriff Matthew Wade. You call, he hauls. We are here with Brad Gilbert, the one and only founder of Gilbert Productions.
Creative.
Gilbert Creative.
I'm Gilbert, they're creative.
They're
people.
creative,
yeah. Right, yeah.
And
I understand that version. I'm the sheriff, but I got people that do the work.
creative sheriff.
Yeah.
Creative sheriff.
Creative sheriff.
Don't
Quattro.
Quattro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're good friends with Pete Conroy.
Yes.
And you're at JSU. Your legacy goes all the way to Atlanta. Give us the quick resume here.
Okay, I can tell you exactly the moment Gilbert Creative was started. All right, I was a producer with Bell South in Atlanta. I went to work at 5:30 or 8:30 on a Wednesday morning. Worked until 5:30 Thursday afternoon, finishing a video. Showed it to the vice president for the state of Georgia for Bell South. He loved it. Went home and crashed and came in at 8:45 on Friday and got written up for being 15 minutes late. Oh. And that was the very moment Gilbert Creative was started. That was 35 years ago.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You know, as sheriff and as a leader, it's very important to recognize those kind of moments that, you can ruin somebody very quickly doing those kind of things.
Well, and I decided to run my company exactly the opposite manner. We give our people a month of vacation because creative people burn out a lot, and good benefits, and it works in a creative environment. My very first client, fortunately, was the Coca-Cola company, and they have a thing on their wall that says there's no limit to what a man can do or where he can go. He doesn't mind who gets the credit. So we also kind of ran that as our company theme, and it's worked pretty well. We've had to adapt a lot over 35 years in media, you can imagine, but it's worked out.
And now you're no longer in Atlanta.
Well, we do have a presence in Atlanta. We still, Coke is still our largest client. We have other clients there. I moved my residence, during the crazy time of COVID. It was like, what do you do, So we had been inside the actual Coca-Cola headquarters for 14 years, running their internal edit suites and the studio and the graphics design department. And as a normal production company, we do 300 jobs a year. But once we were inside Coca-Cola, it was more like 3,000 jobs a year. So you can imagine the tracking and everything like that. Well, in 2014, they decided they wanted to kind of bring things back in-house. And they asked us if we wanted to run it, but they wanted more of a talent agency kind of thing, which we don't do. We are an agency. And so they allowed us to stay on as a preferred agency, but we moved out of the building, so we had a chance to reinvent ourselves. And we went more into virtual meetings and webcasting and things like that. And at the time, you'd talk to clients about that, and they'd say, well, we'll just meet in person. Well, then March 2020 came around, and I couldn't answer my phone fast enough. And one of the groups that called us was FEMA and the CDP. And they had been doing on-site training, 400 people a week, and all of a sudden, without notice, they could not bring a person on site to train, first responders, things like that. So we developed a distance learning program for them and got 8 courses up quickly. And they ended up generating more certificates that year than they did the year before with on-site training. So it really helped them to continue their mission to train the best for the worst.
While we never want something like a pandemic to happen, I do think that pandemic has shown just different things. As somebody that's busy like myself, driving somewhere to go to a meeting where we can do a Zoom, well, you save that drive, you save that time. It's much more efficient. You can get the same things done and move on no matter where you're at. And you can still, I'm a multitasker. You can do the meeting and you can still be doing something else.
Right.
So,
and there's some things you have to teach hand to hand, on site. But what they also found was if you bring 400 students in, about 200 are very experienced, ready to go, and about 200 need to be brought up to speed. So they'd spend a couple days doing that. But with prerequisite training, if everybody takes some of the coursework before they get on site, they can really be productive once they get there and actually turn 2 groups around instead of 1 a week. So that's been a nice discovery. And so that's kind of what brought me to Anniston to live, plus both my sons live here as well. So.
Okay, and you have a studio on the JSU McClellan campus.
Yeah, we do in the McClellan building there, and it's a nice big studio, fully lit. We can do green screen. We can, we have a studio set similar to this where we can do interviews, and it's very flexible. We do live webcasts.
And that puts you in an office right across from my good friend Pete Conroy.
Yes.
Which got you involved in all of Pete's projects.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons you're here.
I'm kind of downstairs, so it all kind of flows from his office down to me, so to speak.
It does. So you're here, and you brought a guest with you for our second half of the show. So why don't you give us a little background on that project?
Okay. And the Freedom Riders Training Institute is something that Pete Conroy developed with Charles Person, who's one of the 2 living Freedom Riders from 1961. And he and Hank Thomas they endured all the stuff that they had to go through and are using that legacy of what they learned for nonviolent protesting for today's issues with rioting and people not having leadership when they go to protest and things falling apart. Property being destroyed, people being hurt. And so they came up with the Freedom Riders Training Institute. And we've had a board of about 12, 13 people. Victor, who's going to come up as one of those people, who've been working for 3 years to develop courses. Our first course is on your rights. You have a constitutional right to protest. Your government cannot take that away, to peaceably assemble. That's your constitutional right. And law enforcement's supposed to uphold that, right? But what happens when people go too far? So the training's interesting in that we have 4 different variations of the course. The first is an 8-hour course for law enforcement. And what we're trying to do is create a sort of a common language so the law enforcement, city leaders, the media, and protesters all kind of know the same language as far as your rights and your limits. Like the government cannot alter what you say, but they can tell you where you can protest and give you times and things like that, so that you're not interfering with the rights of other citizens. And the thing that we're also trying to do is we're not political by nature. We're not red, we're not purple, we're not blue. We're just trying to get people to talk together again. Because that's one of the things that I think our culture has lost, is the ability to sit down, and we may not disagree on, disagree on a lot of things, but we can talk and go away and have a cup of coffee or something like that. But we've lost that ability. It's like everybody hollers at each other. And
social media has not helped that at all.
No, it's not.
And normally if you have a conversation like we're having. We have, there's limits that we put on ourselves, but on social media, it seems like those limits go away, and people say things that they would never say to people's face, and we lose that ability to be able to cordially have a disagreement.
And I think the media stirs it up. I mean, it's like the weatherman can stir things up by saying a tornado's coming, and the media stirs things up by keeping people sort of at odds with each other. But our group, we want to stay centric. We don't want to take sides with anybody, but it is a constitutional right for people to protest. What are your limits, and how can we help facilitate people being able to say what they want to say in a protest, but still be protected in that right, and the police be protected as well, because they're taking the brunt of a lot of the riots and things that go on. One of the things is, have you ever heard someone on the media say, well, there's a protester throwing a rock through a window? Well, that person is not considered a protester anymore. That's a rioter. And there's bad actors that show up and derail an otherwise peaceful rally and take the message away. So how can you help both the activists and the police to recognize that and to keep that from happening?
Absolutely.
So Freedom Riders Institute, bringing people together to help people exercise their civil rights. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with our second guest. And so stay with us for the second half of the lineup and our next guest here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the second half of our lineup. This half brought to you by A1 Freedom Bail Bonding. A1 Freedom Bail Bonds, 256-236-7888. First up in this half, Heather Nelson. Miss Nelson, last known to be living in Alexandria. She's wanted for a failure to appear on a probation revocation and a probation violation on receiving stolen property forth. And this is Octavio Lopez. Mr. Lopez, last known to be living in Wedowee. He's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a forged instrument second. And meet Wilson Gay. Mr. Gay, last known to be living in Sioux Falls, Montana. He's wanted for identity theft. And meet Jennifer Burr. Miss Burr, last known to be living in Aniana. She is wanted for failure to appear in possession of a controlled substance and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. This is Warren Freeman. Mr. Freeman, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted on a probation violation for domestic violence, strangulation, suffocation, and failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance. Meet Joseph Burton. Mr. Burton, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for failure to appear on unlawful distribution of a controlled substance. That's it for our lineup this week. If you have any information on these folks, please give Crime Stoppers a call. That number, 1-833-251-7867. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You might know where they are. If you do, call Sheriff Matthew Wade. You call He Halls. We're here with Victor Grant. Victor, you're retired lieutenant from Georgia University.
Georgia State University, PD. Downtown Atlanta.
Downtown Atlanta, I know.
Downtown. Yep, that's heavy policing.
Yeah, we get quite a bit. We, because Atlanta being the capital and being the city that it is, we have adjoining jurisdictions and overlapping jurisdictions. So downtown Atlanta, we've got several law enforcement agencies downtown, but because we're now probably the largest urban university in the United States, we are all over downtown, plus we have other satellite campuses also, but our main concentration is downtown.
When I was a younger man getting education, they had a very premier PhD program for criminal justice.
Okay.
And I looked at going to school there, and I never took that leap, but I have studied on that university a lot, and they have a great criminal justice programs.
Right, we sure have.
So, being at the university, you've got experience in protest, but you're also on the board for the Freedom Riders Institute, is that right?
Yes.
So, the sheriff was saying, Freedom Riders Institute, it's interesting that it's going to be located in Anniston, right?
That's right.
So,
taking a bad thing and turn it into a good thing.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
And we were talking a minute ago about how you pull together from all aspects of the protest world. So can you talk to the team management or the way you have conceptualized this institute?
Well, as Brad said previously, you want to bring in everybody that's going to be affected, and you want to offer something so everybody can have input. So when that happens, when people react to it, they'll have some type of idea of what's going on, and the tools will be there. They can react to it properly. As Brad was talking about, we have courses for law enforcement, for the community, for the activists, and for sentence reduction. So we put that in place. So from my experience, and I thank God that we have this been implemented through the Freedom Riders Institute, Training Institute, that we have this in place because from my experience as a police officer, we had several riots downtown that I was caught myself in my office in the middle of it. One was a response to the Rodney King riots that went across. We were in the middle of it downtown, got caught off guard about it. But the thing that I found that was alarming to me is that some of the activists, they were just caught up in it. And where they may have thought they were going to come and do a peaceful demonstration, there were elements in that group decided we're going to take this and be involved in criminal activity. Now, when you arrest these people, you got several groups in there. Some people are just there. They say, well, I just came to protest and I got caught up in it. And there are other people who come there intentionally to do damage and to cause unrest in the community. So being able to deal with that is a challenge. As a law enforcement person, you got several things to deal with, and I'm sure the sheriff can piggyback on this, is that first of all, the perception sometimes that people get from the media when they see law enforcement, and they see us sometime in our best hour. For instance, someone may come up and strike a police officer, and that officer has to defend himself, herself, and try to detain that person. Well, the force may be escalated because they have to do what they have to do to defend themselves and put this person under arrest. Well, then that might be captured on the camera where the officer is using force to put this person down. And then you will look at that and say, why are they throwing this poor guy down or this poor lady down? What was they doing? You don't get to see that side of it.
Right.
So then you have the preconception of people who come into a situation in rioting, protesting. They come in with preconceptions on what they're going to do and what the police are. What we're trying to do is trying to minimize the adversarial thought that's in the place, because some people come and they look at the police automatically. That's our enemy. We've got to deal with them. We hate them and see what they're doing. They fail to realize the police officers are human beings also, and they have feelings, and they live in a community, and maybe some of the things that you're protesting about, they may agree with you on. But within the context of our responsibility and what we need to do, you have to act accordingly and properly to address those things. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring people together and saying, let's go ahead and exercise our constitutional rights in the greatest country on earth. And let's do the things we can do to do these things. But you want to also maintain order, and if you can, possibly, to minimize the chaos.
You know, as a law enforcement leader, executive, you know, there's great talks going on across the state and the country about how can we be better to make sure that when that we get there, that people have more trust in us than they have in the past. You see things that's happened like in Memphis or other parts of the country, and that degrades everybody across the country. So we have to be introspective and look at ways of what we can do to be prepared for that. Personally, I try to be transparent. I try to answer questions. I call it putting deposits in your savings account. When something bad really happens, you've made all these deposits in the community over the years, that when something bad does happen, they say, well, he's got a good reputation. He's done X, Y, and Z. So when you say something or something happens, they have a little more faith that you're going to fix it. And we got to be more forthcoming and more transparent quicker, because people expect us to be that, and they don't understand if you don't say anything for 2 or 3 weeks, they think you're covering up. So as a law enforcement leader, we got to make sure that we're transparent. We have to put those deposits in our community every day of goodwill and transparency, and letting them know that we are doing the right thing. So that's what we have to work on as law enforcement, is doing those daily things each and every day. So when 5 people do something somewhere else, they say, well, my people here, they're not that way. Or if something does happen here, we get out and we say what's happened and we act on it. If somebody's done wrong, whether it's wearing a uniform or not, that we do the right thing.
So we only have a few seconds left. Freedom Riders Institute going to be here in Anniston. We've got the CDP that does the law enforcement training on how to respond when things break bad, and this one's going to teach everybody how to respond to keep things from breaking bad. What is the one last comment you want to make about Freedom Riders Institute before we break?
I think Freedom Riders Institute is essential, and hopefully that it will be people around law enforcement agencies around the state and our nation will take advantage of what we're trying to do, because it can be beneficial to everybody that would be affected by it. Our intentions are very good and honorable toward to make everybody feel safe and to use our position to, as I said once again, to bring people together. And to piggyback on what the sheriff said real quick, the things he's talking about is a mindset that came about in law enforcement back in the 80s that we're trying to get back to now under the heading of community policing. And so what we're doing now is we're doing somewhat of that thing now.
Thank you, Victor. We appreciate you being on the show. We appreciate you guys for sticking with us. We're going to have the Crazy Criminal coming up and the Crime Stoppers portion of our show here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we need your help on the following cases. First up, on February 22nd, a 2003 blue Ford Ranger was stolen from a residence on Gray Lane in Jacksonville. And between January 31st and February 1st, a 2021 blue Dodge Ram 1500 4x4 was stolen from Webster's Chapel Road in Wellington. And that's it for our cases this week. If you have any information on these cases, please call Crime Stoppers. That number, 1-833-251-7867.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Sheriff, it's Crazy Criminal time.
I tell you what, everybody's heard the story that starts with a Florida man.
Oh, God.
Well, this is a Florida woman, Sharon Hunter. She's 44. She's on probation, and so she tries to fake her urine test. She knows she's going to be dirty, so she gets a prescription bottle, fills it full of soda and some water to make it look like urine, puts it in a place that she can hide it to make it look like urine, and goes to the bathroom and tries to trick the probation officer. Well, the probation officer was wise to that looks like a pill bottle stuck somewhere, and catches her. And now her probation's being revoked, and she's going to prison. So, I have been a probation officer in times and seen things like that, things called Wizinators and things of those such. It's best just to don't do drugs. And if you're on probation, do right. If not, you end up in prison.
And don't mix your Mountain Dew with water and expect to get away with it, right?
That's right. That's right. And don't forget which bottle's which if you're going to take a drink right before you go see your probation officer.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's terrible.
Okay, Sheriff, before we close, you're always looking to hire people.
Always looking to hire deputies, corrections officers, and dispatchers. Today we need brave men and women to step forward. If you got that calling in your life, come see us. You can apply at our website, www.calcoso.org. We would love to interview you and talk to you about that.
It takes a community to make a community, right?
That's right. That's right.
Great career in law enforcement and helping people out, and we appreciate you for helping us out by watching this show. We hope to see you again next week, but not in the lineup, here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.